Hey, I'm curious to know what anybody thinks about this young lady on TikTok that's been making this noise about all, the churches throughout the United States, man.
26 churches, and 23 of them turned her down. This is what happened to Nicolene. She called 26 churches for help. She pretended to be a desperate mother without baby formula, even playing the sound of a baby crying in the background, begging for help. Some churches gave excuses, some hung up, and others coldly responded, "We don't do that here." But she didn't give up. She made another call, but this time not to a church, to a Muslim mosque. The response was completely different. "Where are you? What kind of formula do you need? Come here, we'll help you." The churches who preach love thy neighbor failed to offer any help in a time of need, while the often misunderstood Muslim community showed what real faith looks like through action. After this experiment, some supported Nicole, believing she exposed the hypocrisy of the religious system. Others criticized her for stirring unnecessary controversy. But no matter where you stand, we all have to ask ourselves, if even those who claim to preach love can't practice it, then where can we find real love?
You know what I'm saying? And it really should be an eye-opener to what the church is, right? Like, the church is not really established to be there for the people like a lot of people think that it is. But let me say this first. Man, because I don't want to make it seem like it's all churches, because I know some churches, man, that don't operate like that, man. For a fact, like, for example, my brother-in-law is a bishop down in East Texas, and man, and I almost think he's working like non-profit. He's doing so much for the community, So all churches don't operate like that, but for the most part, the far majority of churches don't have your best interests. Not only are some of them giving you a contaminated word, but if you ever need them, they're not there. And I think the funny thing is that as much as a lot of Christians point the finger at other religions saying that they're wrong, I believe the young lady called a few mosques and she called a few Buddhist temples and got a completely different response. I believe they said that the guy that answered the phone at the mosque, like, she had to stop him because he was on his way outside the door to come give her a hand. In the temple, I believe they said that the temple offered her just straight cash. Maybe it was cash up or whatever. But it should just go to show you. That the church being for the people and all the money they get and all the, you know what I'm saying? Like, the way the church is structured, that shouldn't be an issue. I think there was a stat, man, and this is just in black churches alone. I did a video on this maybe 3 or 4 years ago about tithes and offerings, and it talked about how much money just the black church alone was getting, and how the churches are set up to be, they're like non-profit. They aren't paying any taxes and all. They don't have to report income. Like they're set up to win, and you're telling me that somebody can call and can't get assistance for a baby? Anybody that picks up the phone at a church should be able to say, hey, you know what? Let me like, we have a special pot for this. We keep $100 on the side just for situations like this. Or let me call the pastor. You know what I'm saying? But to just deny somebody that's homeless and you're a church. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the exact reason I left the church. Like, the last time I belonged to a church was for this specific reason, man. And I was living in Oklahoma, and it was a very small. Well, it was a big church, because when I got there, they just bought a nicer building, not mega church, but it was a nice building, nice size crowd. We were getting offerings, and I remember when I got to that church, man, I started off as just a member. Then I went to an usher. Then I went to a Sunday school teacher. And then I became like we didn't call it deacons, but it was kind of like a board member of the church. And I can remember there was this older lady there, man, that had been there the whole time I'd been there. I'm assuming she had been there for years. I remember she came to one of the members of the board, and I think she needed, I want to say $120, $130 for some meds, for a prescription. And I can't remember what it was for. And I can remember after church, we had a meeting, and we talked about a few things, and this situation came up. And they said, hey, sister so-and-so, been here, man, sister so-and-so needs money for her meds. And it was like unanimously, nope. Everybody was like, nope. And in my mind, I'm thinking, man, this lady's been going here. Like, I see her pay her tithes and offering every Sunday I'm here. Like, and now she needs us. This was in Oklahoma. I wish I knew the name of that church. I wish I remember the name of that church. It was in it was in Lawton, Oklahoma. I said, now she needs money for meds. It ain't like she's trying to go to the club. She needs money for meds, and we're saying no. I said, if we're operating in the energy that we say we're operating in, if all we have is $130, we should give it to her. I said, if that's all we have in the bank, we should give it to her. And they all voted, nope. That was my last time. I won't say my last time going to a church, but that was my last time being affiliated with a church. I told them that was my last Sunday. I told them why, and I left for good. And it's crazy because at that time, this was in 2003. At that time, matter of fact, several weeks later, is when I converted to Islam. You know, I practiced Islam for a number of years, man. And it's kind of like what the sister was saying about the mosque. She called the mosque, and they were like, "Hey, how can I help you?" The reason I converted to Islam so quick is because, of course, at that time, man, in my mind, coming out of Christianity, it was all Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I saw that the people of Islam were following Jesus more than the community I just left. I said, these people are following Jesus more than the community that I just left. You know what I'm saying? So it just makes me think about like what the world is doing right now, right? Like you look at all these massive layoffs, Microsoft, UPS, Apple, I mean, all these people are laying off all these companies are laying off all these people, right? You have the whole EBT and SNAP and food stamp situation that's affecting several 100,000 people, tons of families, and you haven't heard one word about the church saying, hey, you know what? Let's make some commercials. Let's get online. Let's get on social media and let people know that, hey, you know what? We've made billions over the last couple of years. Over the last decade, we've made several billions of dollars. Like, let us know that the people that's been coming to our church, not even come to our church. If we're moving in the energy we say we're moving in, let the community know that, hey, you know what? Our bank accounts are full just for this situation. Our bank accounts are full strictly for times like right now, when tons of people are hurting, but you aren't hearing one single peep out of the church. You might have a few churches in the local community doing a few things. Like I say, like my brother-in-law, man. And I'm not just saying that because he's famous. Like, their church moves in a certain energy. Their church moves in the energy of, whether it's information, whether it's food, whether it's whatever, they're there for the community. And that's what the church is supposed to be like. It's not about getting offerings so your preacher can buy a jet. It's not about your preacher having his mortgage paid or driving a Rolls Royce. It's about the church being for the community. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're better off having your services in a building you're renting every week. You're better off having your services under a tent on Sundays and having money to go out and feed your community. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not knocking churches, man, because I say that religion is one of the most beautiful things that keeps people tied in. But I'm gonna tell you this: that's why I left that particular religion, because I said, you know what, man, it like the actions of 90+% of churches aren't matching up to the message they're teaching. It isn't matching up, man. Like, if you're saying you're seeing the world through the lens of God, you're not conducting yourself like that. Like, you're conducting yourself too much like a business as opposed to an entity that's there for the people, by the people. You know what I'm saying? And I saw this clip this morning about where, and it could have been old, but I saw this clip this morning that Creflo Dollar, well, a guy was talking about Creflo Dollar. He was talking about tithes and offering. And he said that, he showed a clip of Creflo Dollar getting on stage, and he gave a 3 or 4 minute spiel. And Creflo Dollar said this, and I don't know all the backstory, I don't know all the details, but I'll just say what he said. He said, any tape, any video, any any stream you still have recorded where I was telling you about tithes and offering, he said, trash it right now. He said, and Creflo's been teaching for what, 30 years? Creflo's been a pastor since I was young. He said, everything I've been teaching about tithes has been wrong. It has been wrong. And I've been saying, not just me, but people have been saying this for years, man. Like, they're telling you to take 10% of your money and bring it to this business every week. You know what I'm saying? 10% every week. Think about how much money you put into the church over the course of the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years of your life. Think about how much money you put into the church. And if you need one single dime, if you're trying to feed your starving baby, you can't get nothing back. You're telling me that's how the church is supposed to be set up? Like, at some point, and again, I'm not knocking church, but at some point you got to wake up, man. And the thing is, and I said this a few weeks ago, a lot of people are scared to, I won't say book the church, but a lot of people are scared to question things that the church do because they're still scared of this, well, if I question the church, I'm going to go to hell. It's like you still, like church has you in a chokehold strictly because you think you're going to burn on some lake of fire if you question why you're doing something. You got these preachers over the last few weeks, man, that are locking the doors because people aren't paying money. You got people that are, y'all see the clip of the lady that went up in front of the church, and she's voluntarily, giving, like the preacher said, everybody in the church, like God told me that everybody in the church is supposed to give me $2,000, which is BS from the jump. God ain't told him that, right? Which is BS from the jump. This lady, and I think she was a single mother, and she has her child with her. She goes up to church, and it's on television, it's being streamed, and she says, hey, you know what? We're grateful to be able to give. Here's our offering of $1,200. She came out the pocket $1,200 for the church. And she's thinking she's gonna get praise. And the preacher turned around and clown her. The preacher turned around and said, hey, thank you, whatever. But that ain't what I asked for. And now I'm making stuff up. You're being disobedient. You're not moving like the way God told you to move. I said 2,000. Man, I would have smacked snot out of his mouth if I would have been. If I would have been there, if I would have been in the building, I would have smacked snot out of his mouth. I'm going to tell you this. I was at a church one time in East Texas, man. And it was a similar situation like that. It was a situation like, it wasn't a pastor anniversary, but it was an event. I was at this event at a church, and I think they call it like Family Day, right? Well, where everybody from the church. I've been eating some food, guys. Y'all watch. My apologies. Where everybody from the church, all the members invite their families. That's when you invite your aunts, your uncles, your parents, your kids, your friends, and you bring everybody there. And at the end of the service, they ask everybody to stand up and see who has the biggest family, right? Like the Johnsons stand up, the Turners stand up, the Hills stand up, and everybody that came with them stand up, and it's like everybody gets an applaud for the amount of people they bring, which is a beautiful thing. Like, hey, you know what? We're talking about God. See who can bring the most people. Yeah, you brought a lot of people. That's a good thing. It's beautiful. But then it turned into something else. I'm sitting in church, man, and it turned into a competition. It turned into a competition of who could give the most money. So each one of these families would stand up, and then they would have a representative walk to the front of the church. Yeah, we the Turner family, and we're here to give X amount of dollars, and we're grand, and here's our 1,000, or here's our 3,000, or here's our 50, whatever it was. And I noticed after 2 or 3 families, it became like a showboat. But I got up and left. I got up and left because I know me. If I don't get up and leave in situations like that, I'm going to stand up and I'll be like Jesus was when he was flipping tables in the church. I'm going to flip some tables, man. I'm going to tell you, I can take a lot of things. I can put myself in the midst of a lot of bullshit. But when it comes to playing with God like that, I have zero tolerance, bro. Either I'm finna smack snot out of somebody's mouth or I gotta leave the building. But something has to take place, man. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm just curious to know what y'all think about this whole, you know. And to be honest, man, if she called 40 churches in America, I mean, we all know that that's not even a whole percent of churches. But I believe it's fair to say you can look at the numbers. I think it's fair to say you can look at the percentage of what was discovered and walk away with a newfound knowledge. I saw a brother on TikTok that posted. He said, "Man, I guess he had his offering set up on like autopilot. Like, hey, you know what? I might not be there every week, but every week just draft this out of my bank. This is 10%. Draft this out of my bank." This brother said, "I cut my draft out immediately." And then you had a lot of people reaching out to this lady saying, "Hey, call my church and see what they say." You know what I'm saying? Like it's a big ordeal over there on TikTok, man, and it's raising a lot of eyebrows. But just think about this, man. Think about this. If you've been giving your church 10% of what you've been bringing in for the last 10 years, think about how much that is first. Then ask yourself, hey, you know what? If my lights are getting cut off tomorrow, if the repo man is coming tomorrow, can I go back and at least get a loan from the people I've just been willingly giving my money to, saying that I'm giving it to God? Will a man rob? You know what I'm saying? Y'all know they come with that. Will a man rob God? Can I go back to them and say, hey, you know what? I've been giving for 100 years. Hey, can you spot me $500 to keep these lights on? Can you spot me $20 to get my baby some formula? And if you can't, man, you really need to think about what it is you're giving to. You really need to understand what it is you're giving to. And I'm gonna tell you this. And this is just my opinion. I don't give to churches. I don't give to churches. Matter of fact, there are some times where I go to a church. If I got $1 in my pocket, I might drop $1 in the collection plate, especially if the church is aligned with true teachings, right? But I would suggest, man, that instead of you giving, especially in times like right now, instead of you giving your 10% to a brick and mortar establishment, a business, people that are getting tax write-offs, or people that aren't paying before you give your taxes or give your offerings to a church, and I'm not saying don't support your church. Church got to pay the bills too. Church got to pay something, you know. But before you do that, consider giving your tithes and offerings directly to God. Give your tithes and offerings directly to God. How do I give it to God? So what are you talking about? You got people, you're driving to church every single Sunday. You're driving to church every single Wednesday. And you're passing people that you know. You're passing houses, man, where they're struggling to buy groceries. You're passing homeless people on the street that don't know where their next meal is coming from for you to take your $250 to the church every week. You're giving a whole band to the church every single month or more when you're passing people that actually need it and aren't trying to build bigger buildings but trying to survive because their Section 8 is cut off, or because their EBT is cut off, or because they got laid off, or because the government shut down. But you with your pride and you with your big chest out, you would much rather be seen walking down the aisle in your Louis Vuittons, in your Stacey Adams, in your shiny suit, so everybody can see that, hey, yeah, I'm getting the bag. Look at me giving toward the church. It's crap, bro. It's crap if you drive by people that need it every day to give it to a church. It's bullshit. I call it what it is. It's ignorance. It's ignorance, man. So if nothing else, man, this should at least make you question the church you're a part of. And I'm not saying leave the church, but take this conversation to your church. Take this conversation to your deacon board. Take this conversation to your pastor and ask them about it. Ask them how they feel about this. Ask them if, hey, you know what? If this young lady was to call our church, how would this play out? If my lights were about to get cut off and I needed something, would y'all be there for me? Because I never miss a Sunday. I never miss putting something in that offering plate. Would y'all be there for me? It should raise an eyebrow, brothers.
I think the thing that has bothered me the most with the baby formula church calling thing is that those churches that said no really robbed their congregation of the opportunity to be what I used to call in church, what we used to be told were the hands and feet of Jesus. Because let's say the churches really couldn't pay for formula. Let's assume they just had no money to buy a can of formula. If they had put out a message on social media, if they had put out a text message that said, hey, we have a mom with a baby who's hungry. Here's the type of formula they need. Here's where they are. Can anybody meet this need? Countless church members would have bought that baby formula. They would have. They would have taken the opportunity to be like Jesus and feed somebody who's hungry. They would have jumped at the chance. And they didn't even get the chance because the church stopped the true church, the people, from doing what the church is supposed to do.